Welcome to episode 279 of Friars on the Farm. I'm Donovan, and with me is Roy.
Boy, Donovan, we got some catching up to do
Dude,
because it's been Preller Palooza 3.0.
and how many times during the episodes up to it, like, don't worry, he's going to do it. Every Padre fan I talk to at work, everyone online, like, what is he going to do? Like, dude, it's Preller, and it's going to be okay. I have some pushback on that being okay, but first, we're recording so late because I went out to San Jose for a wedding, real quick weekend. Left Friday, came back Sunday. But on Sunday, I went through the airport checkout. I went through one of the older metal detectors, and it picked up my hips. So the guy's like, "Roo, roo, roo, roo." I'm like, I got 2 hip replacements. Okay. So I have to go all the way around and do this one where your hands are up. It goes around, I get through. So I get back to my gear, and Liddy, my wife, has all my stuff there. She's like, okay, let's go. My headphones, my wallet, my phone. I put everything away, put my shoes on, get on the plane, come home, start unpacking. Oh, my computer. So that's a Sunday. I eat, I put it in for a lost and found. They called me on Monday. I didn't, we were going to record that Monday. So, gang, we wouldn't have been so far behind on our trade talk if it wasn't for the San Jose airport having my, so I didn't get it back till like 2 days later on a Thursday or so, late Thursday night. So we're now
Well,
just getting to the trade deadline.
I blame your hips because your hips don't lie.
Right. You should see me. I still kind of walk like a drunk gorilla. But that's why we're so late. And we really appreciate you guys coming and watching and listening. But yeah, it was a challenge.
Well, shout out to the TSA for getting your laptop
Yep.
and getting it sent back to you. So yeah, we're going to talk about the trade stuff. We're going to have our own reactions about who we got, who we let go, what that means for the team, short term, long term, and then there's the whole domino effect of what
Yeah.
happens after the draft, after the trade deadline. So lots of transactions. A lot of guys departed the organization, and we have a few hellos as well.
Absolutely. And so no agenda today. It's just going to be trade talk and all the machinations of what happens during this time of the year anyway, with the draft and then all the trades. But first, you guys, we're still selling the shirt through the Chihuahuas, the Zamo shirt. I don't have it on today. I have my pitching ninja shirt on. I'll put the link to the shirt in the description. You guys, it's a really great cause. It's the Child Crisis Center in El Paso. We're going to continue doing that probably till somewhere in September, where the end of the AAA season is. That way we'll wrap it up. So you still have some time, but please, guys, go down there, get a shirt. It's a really cool shirt. It's a great quote from Zamo, who unfortunately they cannot get him to take a picture of that shirt with him wearing it. So maybe that's the reason. I don't, bless his heart. I mean, I don't know if I would either, but the guy's trying to coach a AAA team and be serious about his job. And even though he loves the community, he loves, and Chihuahua community loves him, he's just not going to do it.
I think he doesn't love the camera. I think he wants the attention to be on the players.
Yep.
Look at those guys,
Yep.
take pictures of them. They're the ones trying to follow their dreams. I'm just here to help them along and keep them all heading the right direction. I think that's kind of how Zamo is. He's not one to chase the limelight. And on that note, I had a personal interaction. So we sit by the bullpen, as I've said so many times,
Yep.
and Peter Somerville has been a bullpen coach with the Padres for several years now. I want to say 5, 6 years at least. And he's one of these silent, under the radar guys. He doesn't talk. He doesn't like to be in front of the camera. But there was an article on Fangraphs. It was a series of little short interviews, and the topic of this article was catch partners. So talking to pitchers about who's your favorite catch partner. So guys are saying, oh, this pitcher, I like to throw to a reliever. I like to throw to the bullpen catcher. So they talked to Seth Lugo, and he says, I usually like to throw to the bullpen catcher, but one in particular, and he's probably going to not like me calling him out, but Peter Somerville in San Diego. And he talked about how he was, because if you look at Peter Somerville on the coaching staff, he's not listed as a bullpen catcher. He's listed as a game planning a coach or
Right.
something like that.
But
And
strategy
so
guy.
Yeah, and so they're out there playing catch, and as a pitcher, they're throwing all their stuff in while they're playing catch. And so he throws a pitch, and Peter says, throw that pitch again. You're going to need it next week against such and such player. Like he's already thinking a week or two ahead. So I thought that was a cool little shout out for Peter Somerville, who wants no attention at all. I said
Right.
something to him last Friday at the game before the game. I was able to catch his ear, and he's kind of bashful about it. Like, yeah, somebody told me, but you know, I try to stay out of the limelight. So
Yeah,
anyway,
and God bless Seth Lugo. He just signed into the little deal again with the Royals. God, it's I want him on the staff. Like I wanted to sign that guy. He is a solid three, a definite solid four. And just one of those workhorses that get the job done. Like he pitched really well against us a couple of weeks back.
well, he was pitching like a one last year. He got Cy Young votes last year.
Yeah, absolutely. But I love those little stories, those inside baseball stories. It's funny. We were watching the game the other day, and we'll get on with the rest of the pod here in a minute. We were watching the game, and in Musgrove, it was Sunday's game. And Musgrove's in the in the booth with Don and Mud chatting, and
He's so
we're up
good
in.
at that.
I love hearing it, but all I hear is from Liddy, and we were up in Marietta with her friend Eric. What is he doing? What is he talking? I can't hear what he's saying. And like I'm trying to hear what he says because he's talking about the inside baseball kind of stuff about his rehab, about just I've heard a few quips of sentences. I'm like, I want to hear that. But there was just so much going on, and they're complaining about him being in the booth. I'm like, dude, I want it. That's the stuff I want to hear. It's like the stuff you never hear people talk about, and he's talking about it, and they're sitting there complaining that he's in there talking. And
I love that stuff. Yeah, he was talking about like the things that Ruben Niebla says when he comes out in a mound visit, and like
right,
we don't get to be in that little bubble right there.
right, and those are the questions. I remember asking Zamo that question way back when he was a Lake Elsinore's pitching coach. And once again, when I interviewed him, he was the same way we talked to him this last season than he was 3 or 4 years ago. Just about the players, real stoic, just kind of like the way it is. And I asked him the question. So, like, what's the most craziest thing you've ever told a pitcher when you're going out there? And he goes up to me. He's like, man, I can't. He won't tell you who it was, but I went up there and was like, see those two guys over there? Yeah, they're waiting for you to throw a strike. So, could you please throw, and then walked off. Because sometimes pitching coaches come out they just come out to give you a breath. They just come out
Mhm.
to kind of just reset, or a catcher will come out and do that. And, but that's the kind of stuff you want to hear. You don't want to hear, about them talking about obviously the players, because it's just going to be, a bunch of positive stuff. But yeah,
Yeah, I always heard that about Darren Balsley, that he'd go out there and he could say like three words,
yeah,
and it's just enough to shift somebody's mindset a little bit, get them
yeah.
thinking about something else, and then next thing you know, they're pounding the zone again. It's crazy. It's crazy the psychology of baseball. I love it.
I just want one major league pitching coach to answer the question. Maybe it's Ruben Niebla. Hey, so what did you tell him there? Maybe it's a first, a first start or a second start from a guy that came up from El Paso. It's 112 in El Paso right now.
Yeah,
You might want to
man.
reconsider. You might want to
Uh-huh.
reconsider your course of action right now. And I know
Yep.
it's not like that, but like I just want to have one coach go like, they're in Tacoma right now, and it's there's a flight. There's an 8:30 flight. It's 6 o'clock. We can get you there.
Yeah,
Um,
right.
Instead of like, hey, you're landing on your front foot, or you're pitching in front of the baseball or whatever. I just that inside baseball stuff. But we way digress.
All right. So the trade deadline. We knew going into this that Preller was looking to add a couple of bats, that there was obviously something to be done at catcher. He always says he wants to get more arms. And in my mind, I was thinking maybe there's going to be two or three deals. I wasn't expecting, like, what was it, five
Yeah,
significant deals that happened as the day went by. And a couple of them were way bigger than anything I expected.
yeah,
And all of these came out of nowhere. Like none of these guys are people that we had heard the Padres connected to in the days leading up to that deadline. And it gets me that other teams, it's like there's rumors. Okay, the Red Sox are connected to player X, and then days later it happens. Like Preller really does work in the shadows. All this stuff comes out of nowhere.
Yeah. And well, and almost the timeline of the day was the first is like the Padres were acquiring, right-handed pitcher Mason Miller from the Oakland Athletics for Leo DeVries. And I was at work on Twitter listening to Ben and Woods right at that time. I'm like, I was just livid. I was livid. Just, are you kidding me? Because I didn't, I knew he threw hard. I looked at the ERA. The ERA is not that great. And I see what, how much, and then there's Braden Nett, the Leo DeVries. I'm like, oh, come on. Then I see Braden Nett and then Henry Baez and Eduardo Nunez. And, I remember a couple episodes back, mentioned trade deadline's coming up. We have a lot of those mid-tier kind of high quality arms that can be traded. I didn't think they were going to do it. I didn't think he was going to, I'm like, just something to talk about. We have Braden Nett. There's some good guys there. But, that's a really big oversell in my opinion. But what do you think?
Okay, so I've come to learn to temper my expectations when it comes to prospects. I know we talk about prospects all the time. We become emotionally attached to them and we think great things. There's a pretty high chance that as good as Braden Nett looks right now, that he never pitches in the major leagues. It might not ever happen. There's also a chance that he shows up, pitches in a couple of games, and then you never see him again. And
Right.
I hope that that's not the case. I hope he goes on to have a long and fruitful career. With DeVries, I believe that he's going to be a major league player of some level. Is he going to be a shortstop? Is he going to be an all-star? I don't know. And he's only in high A right now. And so you're trading it now. Henry Baez, he's on the 40-man roster. I figured we might see him by the end of the year. And then Nunez, he was a free agent that they picked up in the offseason, but he made it all the way to the big league roster, pitched in a couple of games. Interesting guy. I don't think any of those four guys, none of them were going to be on the postseason roster this year.
Right.
I don't know that any of them were going to be impact players next year. Maybe Net is
Right.
the only one that you could see possibly. And so you trade away those four guys and you get Mason Miller and JP Sears. Both of those guys have multiple years of team control. Mason Miller, I think he's already a two-time All-Star who has one of the skills that only a handful of people in the whole game have. There are only a couple of guys that can throw 103, 104 miles an hour. His health has been great his whole time.
Yeah.
He's got a lot to work with. I think we've already seen a couple of adjustments as far as pitch mix to try to fix what has sent the ERA off a little bit
Right.
this year.
Right.
And then Sears, he already got optioned down to El Paso. He might be up again later in this year. But again, another guy that has a couple years of team control, back end starter, gives you a little bit of depth. They wound up trading away from that depth in a separate move that we'll talk about in a moment. So I'd like to think that Mason Miller is going to be a lockdown reliever for years to come for the Padres. There's a chance they might even try to turn him into a closer or into a starter.
Well, and that's
But then the
that,
other part of it is you've been wearing the heck out of those four guys at the back end of the bullpen. Here's another horse you can put in there, and now you can mix and match. You can mix and match matchups.
right.
And
Right.
we've seen some of that already. So now that allows those guys to stretch out a little bit more, and it gives you more length throughout your bullpen. And then we move ahead to the playoffs. And what's the most important thing is having a shutdown bullpen.
Yeah.
So now, if things go sideways in the fourth inning of a game, you can throw it to those five guys and have pretty good chance of making it through the end of the game. I like the trade from a big league baseball standpoint. From a prospect fan standpoint, it's hard to watch DeVries go because you dream on what he could be. It's hard for us personally to see Braden Nett go because we haven't had a chance to talk to him, get to
Right.
know the guy a little bit, and he's such a likable dude, and I want the world for him. But like we say about so many of these guys, now I have to follow him from afar. He'll have a better opportunity to make it up to the majors in Oakland or in Sacramento. They should still be in Oakland. I'm probably going to keep calling them the Oakland A's for years to come.
As we should.
Yeah. So that's my take. It's probably a lot of copium that I've inhaled. You get the inhaler. So I've talked myself into it, just like I have with all these deals.
Well, I tell you, there have been a lot of that morning. There was copium left and right on social media because I had it's real slow right now. I'm able to kind of pay attention a little bit to the Ben Woods and the internet and just and it was the first trade. It was like the first one was the shocker. It's like I guess if you're going to pull the Band-Aid off, pull it off early.
Rip
And
that thing off.
and there's I think they're really I don't know who exactly said this, but I think there is serious talk of making him a starter. So if he gets stretched out at the end of this, in the next season, and eventually works into a starter, like that's some bulldog arsenal that he has that he can go 5 or 6 innings or whatever, just as a starter standpoint. There it is. That makes more sense. And you're right. One of the guys that I keep hating to have to really kind of compare the two, but Wander Franco, regardless of what kind of a jerk and incredibly bad guy he is, he was crushing the ball at 18. He was absolutely, you saw him in A ball, in high A at 18, just hitting dingers, hitting for average, just a beast. He was going to be a fast-track major leaguer and probably going to be a perennial all-star for very long. We don't see that in DeVries. Of course, and we talk about it all the time, prospects kind of, they develop at their own pace. And, Leo shows a great discipline at the plate. Started to show a little bit more power, started to hit for a little bit more average, but he's only hitting 225 in A ball. I understand he's an 18-year-old, but you're right. And you heard a little bit of it on social media where like, we could see DeVries up in 26 or by the, like, no. Like, no, he wasn't going to be, the first sniff of the majors would be at least 27, depending on if what happened next year. So from that standpoint, yeah, prospects are prospects. If one of these four guys become a major leaguer, then it's definitely, or even two of them, like you said, if a Henry Baez or Braden Nick come up, and hell, if Net's a number 5 for organization, and DeVries is a solid everyday shortstop, or maybe third base, do they move over to the second or third? And he's an everyday ball player. That's years down the road. But there was the shock. It was like pulling the Band-Aid off, like just the scab off early. But as the day went on, you just saw the trades keep going. And that's the next one we're going to go into right here. And that's the Ryan O'Hearn and Ramon Laureano. I knew both those names. So when those guys came up, I'm like, let's go. What were your thoughts on this? Because I've heard some things about the trade that really needed for both of them to be in this trade, what they asked for.
Right. And so Kevin Acee put out a really interesting long article on the Union Tribune about what happens in the, like, I'll call it the situation room. They have a room for it, but it's just like a conference room where they get a whole bunch of guys together. And this goes all the way back to spring training where they're throwing out all kinds of scenarios. What do you think about him? What if we could get that guy? What would it take? And so all of these conversations, these trades that happened at the deadline, the groundwork for this was made months ago.
Right.
And so I'm sure the names were exchanged and the Orioles had a list of, okay, if we're going to talk about that player, we want 2 people from this list of 5 kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so they wound up trading away 6 players that were all from the 2024 draft crop, which is just weird to me. So it was Boston Bateman, Tanner Smith, Tyson Neighbors, Brandon Butterworth, Cobb Hightower, and Figueroa.
Yeah. Victor Figueroa.
Thank you. So, okay. So first off, O'Hearn and Laureano plug right into the lineup. Laureano's now the everyday starting left fielder, and he's already made a couple of plays that are just like, I haven't seen a Padre player make that kind of play in left field, at least since Will Myers was out there. And you finally have an elite defensive outfield all the way across. Yeah. And with the bat, he's been more than what you could have asked. Yeah. And then Ryan O'Hearn adds depth. He's the lefty. He can crush righties. He can play first base. He can play outfield. He can DH. And both those guys showed up with the right attitude of like, I'm just here to do whatever I can do to make the team win. O'Hearn is a pure rental. And then Laureano has a team option for next year. So you're trading roughly a year and a half for these 6 guys. Now, all 6 of these guys are at high A or lower, with the exception of Tyson Neighbors.
Right.
And so I like to go by the prospect evaluations I see on Fangraphs, and I feel like they're pretty realistic and pretty measured about what they do. I feel like MLB Pipeline, their job is a little bit to be a hype machine. And so they'll try to give you a little bit of
Agree.
a balanced take, but they try to show you the shiny side because I feel like they're MLB. It's an MLB employee. Their job is to market everybody.
Right.
Where
Promote.
where Fangraphs, I feel like those guys are pretty honest about giving you evaluations. So Cobb Hightower, we see the athleticism. What they say is that he lacks the physicality of a major league shortstop, and they don't see a frame that's going to grow into that.
Right.
Being now, every shortstop in the major leagues is built like Cal Ripken. You don't see Mark Belangers out there. You don't even
No.
see Ozzie Smiths out
No.
there. 5'9" wiry guy that can do a backflip. No, that guy's maybe playing second base, but
Yeah. You're
that's
seeing
not a shortstop
6'2", excellent range, power guy. Like there's
with shoulders like this
right,
and the
like
ability to put one
Tatis.
in the second deck in batting practice. And they don't see that about Cobb Hightower. So that moves him back to being maybe a utility infielder, maybe a bench player kind of a thing. And they're already saying that about him when he's in single A. Could he grow beyond that? Sure. But I
Yeah.
don't know. It takes a long time to get there. Boston Bateman and the Sasquatch, 6'8", and he already looks incredible. And I think he's going to be something special, but you got to wait 3-4 years at
Yeah.
least to get there.
Yeah.
So in exchange for all 6 of those guys, where you can squint your eyes and see maybe a couple of major leaguers in that group, you're getting 2 players that immediately fill massive needs on your major league roster, one of whom sticks around until next year. So you're trading, it's a bird in the hand is worth 2 in the bush, or whatever that phrase, however that goes. So that's me talking myself into it.
Right. No, absolutely. And when I saw those 2 names and I saw the names that went that way, I was like, okay, so we're now going to be just called the Trade Deadline Podcast. Welcome to Trade Deadline Podcast. These are the guys that we were to be talking about, but we didn't want to waste our time because now they've been traded. But I saw that list, and you're right. Like Bateman and let me see, Bateman and Neighbors are the 2 guys that are probably going to make the major leagues. Tanner Smith, as much as we follow the minor leagues, I still can't remember that we drafted him. He's been injured.
Yeah.
He's been injured, right? He's been really working with injuries. That's right.
Right.
And Butterworth, I think he was a 4th round guy, 4th, 5th round guy. And
yeah,
but you see him and he's one of those spark plug kind of guys, and like a David Eckstein guy. I liked watching him play. He was one of those, he just was a pest on the base path. But do I see a major leaguer there? No. Do I see, could he grow into it? Maybe, absolutely. Maybe, definitely, maybe. And like you said, with Hightowers, like these guys are so young and so far back that when I looked at this list, I'm like, okay, and Victor Figueroa, undrafted free agent, who just seems to, he's a Romeo Sanabria of that whole bunch of like, just kid got picked out of nowhere and just hits. But he ain't moving off first base. And as he gets older, he's going to have to there's going to be some weight issues there. He's going to have to definitely hit for more power, and with more power comes more strikeouts. So he's going to be a strike, two outcome kind of guy where he hits a tank or strikes out, or, maybe he finds a swing and he does break it down a little bit, hits for a little more average, but he's an undrafted free agent. So, that's kind of one of those lottery tickets. You're like, hey, here's your lottery ticket. I remember, who did we trade for a few years back that we got from the Cubs? I can't remember. It was a shortstop. He wasn't as highly regarded as a DeVries, but he was like 17, and he was one of our top international free agents. And maybe 23. I can't remember his name. And then the other kid who throws 100 miles an hour, who's in another organization for the Washington Nationals.
That'd be Harlan Susanna.
Yes, Susanna. I think he's in AA now or AAA.
Okay.
But the other kid was a shortstop. It was a lottery pick, and he was one of our top international signings of the 23 season.
Well, right, Ismail something.
Not Ismail
Darvish trade.
Yeah. But it was a lottery pick, And so someone like, with Figueroa, it's a huge lot. It's a hit with a lottery ticket, at least in the minor leagues. And then you have your Bateman and Neighbors, I hate to see go, but I'm trading. Who do you got?
Okay, Reginald Preciado is the
That's
guy
it,
you're thinking
Reginald
of.
Preciado.
Ismail Mena was the
Okay.
name that popped into my head. But yeah, Reginald Preciado is the guy that you're, and so yeah, he was the guy that they put in there. Like, oh, this guy could be special. Well, what's he doing now? He's in High A South Bend, hitting 220
Right. And
at
he's been
age
there 2 years
22.
now, and he should be
Yeah,
18, maybe 19.
he's 22 now. He
Oh,
was
geez.
18
Yeah.
when he got traded.
Yeah. Okay. So,
So
right.
yeah, how often do those guys hit?
I wanted Neighbors in Bateman because I like big, tall guys that just throw gas. And Neighbors such a god. He's a red ass, so you like it. But you've seen some of that with God, who pitched the other day. Just it was Mason Miller. It was a tough inning, and he kind of pitched to a jam, and he got out of it. And it was just like he smacked his glove, just like comes off the mound, just like pumped. I'm like, that's it. You know, Ryan O'Hearns and Ramon Laureano, both those guys are going to help the team now. They are, and who knows? Maybe we sign Laureano to a sweet deal. Maybe he goes and signs, and we get a Comp B pick
Let's see.
if that
Laureano
works.
has he's a $4 million contract this year. He has a $6.5 million team option next year, which is not a bad value, especially considering the year he's had.
No,
So
absolutely, and
yeah,
maybe instead of that option, maybe we find the money with that. I almost said Ryan Klesko money.
yeah. Well,
uh,
he's 31.
okay,
And so the last couple of years, all of a sudden, he's just unlocked something because
yeah,
all these years, I know people have been asking, like, oh, I hope the Padres trade to get him. And I'd always look over there and like, he's not hitting for a very good average. And yeah, he's got power when he runs into one, he plays good defense, but he doesn't get on base that much. He doesn't hit for average. Now, all of a sudden this year, he's getting on base a ton. He's hitting for average, and the power is still there. How real is it? I don't know, but I'm not asking any questions right now. I just want to ride this
yeah.
until he's on the postseason roster, you know?
Right. So maybe you sign him, you pick up that option. And at 31, he's the profile. He's kind of like the guy that he's picking it together. Um, and then you just wait. God, I had a thought there for a second. Whose money comes off the books? Hosmer's money comes off the books.
Hosmer's money comes off the books. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's another 13 million where
Yeah. And then there's Ha-Sung Kim's buyout. There's money paid to Connor Joe still. But yeah, there's no big money like that lingering next year.
and you keep that guy in the lineup, in our lineup with that protection, he's gonna get pitches to hit.
Yeah, Kevin Acey pointed out that after all these deals, if you look ahead to next year and you just kind of chalkboard write down, you can put a name every position on the lineup, and you can fill out a full bullpen and starting rotation with players that are under contract for next year.
Yeah.
So we're not playing with a whole bunch of rentals now. We got a couple of rentals, but the guys that are leaving, you have people that are going to be taking their spot next year.
Yeah. Okay. So, but once again, so that one didn't really hurt. But after the defreeze, I'm still like, hey, whoa, come on. Preller's prelling, and everyone's posting the F them prospects kind of,
Yep.
little memes, and they're
I think
funny.
there's a T-shirt out there now with
Right,
Preller's
yeah,
face on it, and it
with the
says that.
DSG Devon Gospel. Yeah. Um, but I'm just like, I'm like looking at our podcast, and I know the boys over at Mad Fires are like, all right, we just
You know
talked to
who I
that guy. We
you know
just
who I
talked to that
really
guy.
you know who I really felt for were the social media people at Lake Elsinore. For
Right.
Justin and those guys in Lake Elsinore, they just put out their lineup for the day.
Yeah.
And like immediately, like scratch, 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 scratch. Okay, who are we going to fill in now? And then the next deal happens. Okay, that guy's gone, that guy's gone, that guy's gone. And then like the day after that was the whole dominoes. Okay, all these players are moving up
Yep.
because now we have all
Yep.
these vacancies in double A and high A. So Lake Elsinore, like half their roster turned over overnight.
Yeah.
So I felt for those guys. Like they're trying to market these players and now they're
Right.
all gone.
And they were fan favorites. And like, I hadn't gone up there yet this year, but I paid close attention to what Justin's doing there with the social media and the team itself. It's just, And what I like, what I've seen from the Chihuahuas, from the missions, from all the affiliates saying goodbye to these players. Like I don't know if I've seen that in any other. I'm sure they do it in other organizations, but seeing the Chihuahuas, saying goodbye to Ryan Burgert, or seeing the mission saying goodbye to what was it?
To Tyson Neighbors.
Tyson Neighbors, and then Kolick, with the Chihuahuas. Um, I thought that was really sweet, and I'm a sucker for sweetness. So
Yeah, up in Lake Elsinore, they've been doing that series where it just says, "Hey, you want to have a catch?" And
yeah,
then they'll play catch, and it's the
yeah,
question and answer thing. They just put the Cobb Hightower one out, and so it's great. You get to peel back
yeah,
the a little bit of the personality and
yeah,
get to know the person behind the jersey.
yeah.
And just like that, boom, they're gone. Okay, so you mentioned a couple of names on this next deal, and this is the one that has a little bit of lasting controversy.
Yeah.
Freddie Fermin from the Kansas City Royals for Stephen Kolick and Ryan Berger. When this first got reported, I heard that the Padres were getting Freddie Fermin. I think the first name that I'd heard was Kolick. And when I heard that, I'm thinking, okay, number five starting pitcher for a backup catcher. I think I'm okay with that. I came to peace with that. And then I learned that Burgert was also included in the
Right,
deal.
right.
And so that this one has had some people a little bit raw.
Well, it definitely has been raw because you've seen what's happened with the pitchers that took their place. With JP Sears, and here's the thing. We're so automatically wanting to condemn this because of one start. JP Sears had a bad start, hadn't got a chance to even unpack before he's starting, and then has a bad start, which everyone is entitled to do, if not more. New organization, knew everything. He doesn't even know where his luggage is, and pitches and got lit up, and it was pretty rough and it was pretty bad. But then the next time come around, and we're going to talk about Nestor Cortez in a minute, and I remember seeing that one. I'm going like, fuck, I don't like that guy. I hate he's not doing it now, but when he would do this,
Whole
then throw the
deception
ball,
thing, the timing thing.
even when he was doing that and doing well, I'm like, that's just I don't like that. Yelling at cloud. Um, but when I saw those two guys, I'm like, those are two guys, and Koldick, both those guys, solid starts.
Yeah, they were huge contributors to this year's team. This team doesn't make the playoffs if you didn't have the contributions from those guys from the first half. They were a big part of the roster. Um, Flip side, though, this has been a historically bad catching core. You've got Martin Maldonado, who is as washed as it gets. Last spring, we were sitting here hopeful that Maldonado and Hayward and maybe these guys will find the fountain of
Yeah,
youth and they'll be good. But no, it was clear Maldonado, the bat's not there and the
right.
arm isn't what it used to be. And he's not the framer and the blocker that he used to be. And so then you have him and Diaz. And by pretty much any measure, it was by far the worst performance from the catching position in Padres history and
Yeah,
among the worst team performances in Major League history up to that point. So then you bring in Freddie Fermin, who for me was fairly unknown. I look him up. He grades out fairly well as a defender. He's got a good arm, pretty good blocker, pretty good framer, all this stuff. And then he's like a contact first, contact on base over power hitter. But then I went and I looked on the Kansas City messages from what was
oh,
coming out on social media from Kansas City.
oh yeah,
And you look in the replies, and the Kansas City fans were like, he's a dog. I'm going to miss him. We
right.
love this guy. And he's been blocked by Sal Perez, who plays more games at catcher than anybody. Like he's the most durable catcher you're going to find. Him and um, the guy in Philadelphia. Those guys are out there catching 120, 130 games
Real
a year.
Muto.
Their backup doesn't get an opportunity. So maybe if Fermin plays a little bit more, he'll perform like he did the first couple years that he was in the league. But regardless, you've got a guy that fits the Padres organization well from an offensive standpoint. You've got a better defender and he's going to be here for years to come. He's under team control for several years. So I like that you've got. So the way that I've been justifying this in my mind is you traded away two guys that aren't going to be on the postseason roster. No matter what happened from here out, if Bergert or Kolek was on the postseason roster, that means something went wrong. You had
Really wrong.
injuries,
Right.
and they were there because you needed a warm body, like the 2020 postseason, that adventure. So instead, you brought in now your starting catcher for the duration of this year, hopefully your backup catcher for the remainder of his time as a Padre, a long-term solution for a couple of guys that arguably you can replace them fairly well.
Yeah. There's still some,
Right.
and we'll
Yeah.
hopefully we'll have time to get that. We'll get to some. There are still some arms in the system, but you're right. Excuse me. I didn't know who the hell that guy was. I knew that he was back up to Salvador Perez. Wonder if he even knew how to catch because Salvador Perez never takes a day off. And he's just such a perennial all-star. But then he comes and he's short, looks like a catcher. Not Maldonado's a big boy, kind of doughy. I think his first game. I'm sorry, I got a choking here.
So
Sorry, guys.
catchers tend to be that way, I mean,
Right.
little extra
But
meat on the
in
bones.
Little League, you don't want him like that. You want him like Fermin looks like a little stocky guy, but like thin. I think his first game, I think his first game he got a knock, and he's already hit a tank. So right after he got his first hit, I think he got a couple hits. I'm like, okay, there it is. That makes the trade. But from a starting pitcher point of kind of perspective, those Kolek and Berger were definitely weren't going to be on the postseason roster, but they were doing enough and doing it well enough to certainly Berger with the years of control and the years of development even in the major leagues. Like for me, better be something special. What I mean by that, better than what we have now, and maybe a little even better than that. And I think we do have that in him. And there's lots, our organization and development staff can work with him on the front, on the behind the plate side and at the dish side. But he's got more hits than I think both our catchers before the trade got in like a week. And that's just a weekend series with him. And every time he comes up, you're like, okay, he can get a hit here. And when he doesn't get a hit, I'm not like, oh, that was expected. It's like, okay, we'll get him next time. That's where my excuse me.
The last time that we spoke, the Padres would get to like number 5 in the order, and then after that, it's just like, okay, time to go to the bathroom, go get something to eat because this inning's over.
Innings
and
over.
Now, yeah, and so now Fermin can hit. He's not an automatic out. You got Cronenworth hitting 8. You got Laureano. You got O'Hearn. I mean, these guys are legitimate threats, giving you depth all the way through the order, which they were lacking. They were lacking 2 weeks ago, and so again, from a Major League Baseball competing today and looking ahead to next year, I think this move makes sense. This is the one though that I think you really can make the solid argument. Like they might have paid a little bit more than they needed, but I don't know. I've talked myself into it. I've sold myself on it.
No, and I agree with that. And I looked at the comments and I saw all the Royals fans, and they were like, yeah, you're gonna love this guy. We're gonna miss him. Like he was a fan favorite. But a good ball player. Like our fan favorites are, Yangervis Solarte, and Ha-Sung Kims of the world, where they're just lovable because they're lovable. Not because they're a good ball player and maybe getting the opportunity when they do, but like we love them because they have maybe a little personality, or we can chant their name, while they're up to bat. And hearing that dog, like a guy, and he looks like a bulldog. It's one of those guys where you feel like he's going to do well. Obviously with the defense, I saw some issues this weekend. There were a couple balls were pulled, but a couple balls maybe got by that maybe could have been caught. Which could definitely show up in the postseason. Like those things are magnified in the postseason. But as the pitchers get more comfortable with him, as he gets more comfortable with our pitching staff, he'll be better aligned to get in front of those balls and know what's coming. Or, fast balls happen, but you just have a really good feeling. And I know that Liddy had her doubts because he had a couple of pass balls, and I had to explain like, hey, that was a pitcher's ball. He pulled that ball. It wasn't Fermin's fault.
So AJ Cassavell put out an article the other day that there's a connection with Freddie Fermin. So
Oh yeah,
Carlos Hernandez, former Major League catcher, he was on the 98 Padres. Now he's a broadcaster on the Spanish language side with the Padres. He's from a town called Guayana in Venezuela. This is also Freddie Fermin's hometown. Freddie Fermin's father and Carlos Hernandez grew up together. Like they were close friends through as they were kids and growing up through adulthood. And so when Carlos Hernandez found out that Freddie Fermin Jr. is coming to play for the Padres, he was so happy. And so this article, if you haven't seen it, go check it out. It's
yeah.
a really heartwarming one of these kind of like a homecoming stories. He's not coming home to San Diego's not his home, but he's got
The
a
heart's
friend
coming
in
home.
San Diego. Yeah. And so it's one of those heartwarming kind of a things. I love hearing that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. And, Carlos Hernandez was the last catcher to bring the Padres to the World Series. Is it fate? Who
Ooh, I like
knows?
that angle.
So I'm, as the days going by, and I'm not sure all these are really in line with how the day went, but it's pretty close. And so, after the Rhino Hearn and Ramon Laureano, I'm like, okay, so Preller is going to absolutely Prell. He just showed his first hand with such a here throw away your potential ace in the prospect kind of card to get that guy. However, but then the next, then at the end of the day, you got, well, then it was the Brandon Venezuela who, how many times during this season that we talked about the potential of him, making a push maybe next year or something like that. You saw a lot of that on X and on the prospect, the prospect side of Twitter, where they're like, hey, this kid's doing well. The kid's doing well. Seemed to have found a groove in Double A. Needed to show some more maybe in Triple A, but like, had reset himself in Double A and was definitely, we were talking about him a lot and was definitely kind of showing something. But it's such a rando kind of like trade. And we'll talk about that here in a second. But what did you think about that trade?
Yeah, so he was sent to the Blue Jays for infielder Will Wagner. And I will admit, I'd never heard of Will Wagner before. I'm like, oh, okay, there's a deal. Googling Will Wagner. So this is Billy Wagner's son, Billy Wagner, who just got inducted to the Hall of Fame. Congratulations. But Will Wagner, dude can rake. He can play a little bit of infield. It sounds like he doesn't really have a position with the glove. He can play a little bit of third base, little second, little first base, but not a good defender anywhere. But the guy hits a lot. He hits for average. He gets on base, sprays the ball all over the place. It sounds like the bat profile matches up with what the Padres like to do right now. So a lefty hitter that I think if an opportunity doesn't open up this year, you can plug him in next year somewhere, and he's going to be a contributor right away. So he went to El Paso, and right off the bat, he's already just today, El Paso, they tweeted out, one of our newest dogs is making a name for himself early. Will Wagner is your truly Nolan player of the week. 5 games, a 429 average, a 538 on base percentage with 9 hits, a home run, and 6 ribbies. But it sounds like that's who this dude is. He just hits, and you hit, and you will find yourself an opportunity.
Absolutely. How old is he? Do you know?
I can answer that.
I mean, Wagner's not that old. He's, and it's taken him a while to get into the hall. And as dominant as he was as a closer, I think after Trevor and Ramon, and
Laureano?
Rivera, how old is
Hmm.
he?
He's 27.
Okay,
So he's a little older, but that's kind of more in the Cronenworth kind of neighborhood when Cronenworth came around.
right, and that's fine. And we'll see how it goes. But it was like, oh man, another one bites the dust. Another one we have to say goodbye to. We never talked to him, but we talked so much about him that that was, it's like, God dang, damn it.
Okay, so I talked about copium. Another thing that I feel like I think this organization gives opportunities to the guys that show it on and off the field. And I can't help but when I see a player traded away, whether it's from the Padres organization or from any other organization, there's a reason outside of the box score that if they loved him that much, they wouldn't let him go.
Right.
I think with the Soto trade, it may have come down to, okay, you've got to include either James Wood or Jackson Merrill. And the
Yeah.
Padres looked at those two guys, and it may have come down to makeup over like ceiling talent, and they said you could have James Wood because they knew what a special individual Jackson Merrill is outside of the lines as a
Right.
teammate, as a leader.
Right.
And so I, as a catcher, that's such an important thing to have those intangibles. And so I can't help but wonder. Now, I'm not saying that Brandon Valenzuela lacks those things, but what that says to me is that he wasn't in their plans for the near future. That they
Right.
weren't looking at him as being okay. He's going to come in. He's going to be part of the
Right.
2026 Padres. I don't think they had that in the plans for him, especially after they picked up Freddie Fermin.
Absolutely. And one of the things about, trading away Valenzuela, do you think maybe Luis Camposano would have been a better trade? I mean, here's the two things that we haven't talked about yet is Luis Camposano is still in the organization. And obviously Ethan Salas is injured and, the value there is down, but there's a ton of upside with Ethan and particularly at a hard to develop position in catcher. Both those guys stayed. So it just tells me a lot. I don't know what it tells me, but it just makes me scratch my head a little bit and tells me a lot about what they think about those two guys and maybe even the value of those two guys on the trade block. So I think sometimes when trades happen and guys that we expect to get traded don't get traded, become I don't know, infused with maybe some, I don't know what I'm trying to say here, but like, let's see what happens with Luis Camposano. Maybe he's our backup catcher next year. Um, with Diaz, I don't know, and I know I'm still on the Campy train, bro. I'm still on the Campy train, but it's leaving the station certainly organization wise. But I think as long as he keeps showing up in El Paso the way he is, I don't know where his contract status is right now, but see what happens next spring when he comes into spring training.
Yeah, we've been on kind of on opposite sides of this debate for a while now, and I was surprised as well that he was still here. What it told me is that I don't think there was a whole lot of interest in him,
Yep.
especially as a catcher. Like if there was another team out there that had a need and
Right.
saw athletic guy that's hitting whatever 1200 OPS in AAA, like you look at that and the tools, the skills are there. It's a
Yep.
matter of converting them at the major league level and then all the other stuff that you need to be a good catcher. And so I have a feeling that Preller's been looking for a trade partner, but he hasn't had anybody offer the return
Right.
that that makes sense. Now, Salas, so Leo DeVries, everybody's got him as a top 10 prospect in baseball. He's had a couple of crazy weeks this year where he's going bananas. He's healthy. Yet, so I feel like his stock has been trending up.
Yeah.
And so I feel like this may have been a bit of a sell high moment, or at least an opportunity to sell high,
Yeah.
because next year they move him up to double A, he plateaus, and who knows, maybe that stock takes a bit of a dip. Salas is the total opposite of that. He struggled early this year, probably got pushed a little bit too hard as far as the level of competition he was
Yep.
facing, and then the injury and all of this. So somebody would be taking on somebody that you could see as a bit of damaged goods, which is a weird thing to say about somebody who's only 19 years old.
Right.
So I think they held Salas back unless the crazy deal showed up. But I don't think it sounds like he wasn't even a part of trade conversations
Right.
where
Right.
some of these things that have come out afterwards, it sounds like Preller was shopping DeVries fairly aggressively. Like Stephen Kwan, Jaron Duran. It sounds like he was in the conversation for guys like that. And it was just a matter of who's going to blink first and accept the package. And it was Oakland. So I thought it was interesting. We still haven't gone over the Nestor Cortez, but it sounds like the way that Preller has operated, especially with this trade deadline, is like there's all these dominoes that have to fall.
Yeah.
And he needed to know that all of these things were lined up. Otherwise, it didn't make sense to do any of them. Like you don't get a Mason Miller unless you know you're getting a couple of bats to
Yeah.
fill out your lineup. You don't trade away two starting pitchers to fill your catcher void unless you know you can get a couple of at least competent back end starting pitchers to take their spot for the remainder of this year. All of these pieces had to fit. And this year, Preller pulled all the strings and they all came together.
Yeah, and he said that during his presser too. He's like, you don't make these trades unless you know other things are lining up. And as a fan, I want to go like, could you let us know? Could you just let us know? Like, and
No, no,
of
he's
course
playing
not. But
poker.
at 7 o'clock in the morning, that trade goes through, and I wanted to call in, go like, what the hell's going on? Um, so let's move on to the right. So let's move on to the Nestor Cortez, where I mean, what can you say? They gave him Jason Lockridge or Brandon Lockridge?
Yeah, yeah. So this one, I don't understand this one from Milwaukee's side of the deal. So at first we heard Nestor Cortez and they're sending Brandon Lockridge. Then we hear Padres are also getting Jorge Quintana, who's a rookie ball shortstop, switch hitting shortstop, and there's like your lottery ticket. But they signed him for like $1.7 million as an
Yeah,
international free agent just a year or two ago. So that's a fairly large prospect chip. There's a lot of prospect capital
right.
right there that you're getting. And then the Brewers also sent over cash to offset Cortez's contract, which, by the way, the Orioles also sent cash along with Laureano and O'Horn. So all three of those guys are getting paid the prorated major league minimum for the remainder of this year. So Padres only gave up Brandon Lockridge to get Nestor Cortez, a lottery ticket shortstop, single A, and cash. Were the Brewers that desperate for an outfielder because Jackson Churio just got hurt? They needed an outfielder. Lockridge went red on their active roster. Were they that desperate to move Nestor Cortez, who's been on rehab assignment all summer and
Yeah,
was just about to be due to come off that rehab assignment? Like, there must have been some motivation from Milwaukee's side to make this deal.
absolutely. And here, that's the team right there that I think everyone's sleeping on. Like, I think Milwaukee is just a juggernaut, and it's because they're in the Central. Like, no one, everyone pays attention to the Cubs, good or bad, and I think they're leading in the wild card right now. But like, I think they're gonna run the table for a little bit in the postseason, or at least they seem to be doing that. Um, you never know. I mean, were they going to DFA Cortez after this? You've seen larger teams make those kind of moves when people come back from rehab or just in general. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of Cortez, and I've watched a lot of his starts. I've watched him where I'm like, how can he have 8 strikeouts and 3 hits in 7 innings against the Toronto Blue Jays? Like, how does that happen? Even with his funky twist and turn kind of wind up shenanigans, I guess you want to say. um, so it is fine if we can get Jorge Quintana and and if he comes through the prospects and he gets in our development system and we make him into something we can talk about for the next few years or so. And Cortez kind of bridges the gap right now with Michael King, coming back, or maybe even just is a innings killer, just eats up innings. And I tell you, we need guys to go more than 5 innings. And both him, JP Sears, and Cortez need to be much better than 5 innings, we hope. I don't know. Maybe I don't know what it is. Who knows where the bodies are buried? But Preller maybe knew where the body's buried because as much as Brandon Lockridge was a late inning defensive replacement / occasional left-handed pinch hitting bat or right-handed, yeah, right-hander,
Right hand.
right-handed. I mean, to give $2 million for the guy, what? No, what do you have here? Yeah, 2.1 million. So you're getting paid twice what Jorge was signed for as an international free agent. I'm not sure what Nestor Cortez was making, but he's been in the league for a while, so it's got to be 4 or 5. What did you say? 4 or 5 million, maybe?
Yeah, I don't have that in front of me. I was trying to
Yeah,
see
no,
if
it's
I could look up what Quintana's. Yeah, Quintana signed for $1.7 million. Um, but yeah, I I wonder if Cortez wasn't passing the vibes check in Milwaukee. And so if there was a suspicion that when he comes off the IL, he's got to take the spot of somebody who's their whole pitching staff is just lights out right now.
Yeah.
And it's a
Right.
bunch of guys most people had never heard of.
Yeah.
But whatever they're doing, it's working like gangbusters. And so you don't want to mess with that chemistry. So his nickname is the Hialeah Kid. He grew up a couple years younger than Manny Machado and idolized Manny Machado growing up. And so if there is any kind of a vibes concern, he's coming to a place where his idol
Yeah.
that they can relate on the deepest level, like he's right there to keep him in check. And
Yeah.
at the same, there was a quote from Marty Caswell, I think, was talking to him in the locker room, and he said something like, "If we had a chance to get out of Milwaukee," or some phrasing along those lines. And the words that he said, it told me that him and his agent, they were looking for an opportunity to go somewhere else. Like for whatever reason, I don't think he was comfortable there.
Or maybe they
Um,
were going to put him in the bullpen, or maybe they were going to, send him to triple. Maybe there was talk of like, okay, you need to rehab or continue
oh, he's
rehabbing and we'll throw you in
yeah.
the bullpen.
Yeah, so but now he's got an opportunity to go. You got Ruben Niebla that can tweak some stuff and maybe help him become the guy that he was an all-star once upon a time. And
Yeah.
I'm with you. I don't like the goofy timing stuff. He hasn't done any of that here. And it seems like every time I would see him do that, he would throw a ball. So if I'm the batter and I see him start moving his leg all over the place, my bat's just going on my shoulder and I'm doing the Luis Ariz
Yeah.
statue take.
Yeah.
But his first start here, he got rocked a little bit, but then he settled in.
Yeah.
And I think he was in for 5 innings, which is for a first start with a new team coming off injury rehab and all that. That's acceptable. So
Right.
if that's what you get from him once a week, I think you can work with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we'll see how these, particularly with, Sears and Cortez, how the rest of that bullpen, the rest of the rotation kind of plays out the rest of the season. But I didn't know they had sent all this money. you know, the big before the trade deadline was like, okay, if we trade for guys, we can't afford much. They first trade, they blew right past that. The
Right. But even then, so Mason Miller, he's making league minimum. He's on the I'm bringing the payroll back up here. But
He's
he's
only been up for what,
pre-arbitration.
2 years.
Yeah, this is his third year. And he was
Yeah.
a starter. He's made 6 starts his first year in the league. He has been a starter. His whole story is really interesting. How he was in college, lost a whole bunch of weight, was having these health issues, found out he's a type 1 diabetic. And then after that, he put on the weight, and then he had more strength and more velocity than he ever knew was in his body. I mean, a pretty cool story. And it sounds like he's kind of a special individual, from down inside. So, okay, I was talking about adjustments. So that first game, he goes in Arizona and he winds up getting rocked by Lourdes Gurriel. And somebody broke down that, I think it was Letters to AJ. I love his newsletter. I brought it up a couple times before. And he kept trying to blow him away with fastballs. First couple pitches, Gurriel was late. And then he started to get him timed up. And then Mason Miller threw him a slider and he pulled it like all the way into the left field dugout, like
Right.
way out in front of that slider because he was so timed up for the fastball. So rather than continuing to play with his timing, he threw him a couple more fastballs that he fouled straight back. And
Right.
then finally he hit 104 miles an hour into the left field seats. So then the next time he came out, he was messing with his pitch mix a lot more,
Oh
mixing
yeah.
sliders in a lot more. And I think that we're going to see. I don't know what kind of pitching development staff they have going on up in Oakland. I'd like to think that Ruben Niebla has that pitcher whisperer way about him. That
Yeah.
he can take what somebody's doing and say, okay, let's tweak this, let's do that. Rather than leading off with this, let's do that. We've seen that with Dylan Cease. He was throwing fastball slider first half. They started to figure it out. They started to be able to sit on his fastball, and he was starting to get hurt. And now the last several starts, he's been mixing it up a lot more. You see, he's got a little bit more knuckle curve in there.
Yeah.
He's got a sweeper that he's mixing in. If you chart out his pitches, he's starting hitters off with a different pitch each time they come up.
Yeah.
And so I think there's a little bit behind the scenes work that we're seeing doing that they're coming up with adjustments to help fix these guys. So JP Sears, go down to El Paso, spend a couple weeks down there working with Zamo and the other guys they got down, Bobby Jones and whoever else they've got down there working with stuff. And I think when we see him come back, he's going to have an adjusted mix that may be a little bit more effective.
Yeah, I don't know what is it with Mark Hartsey over there in the A's organization, and I don't want to knock his staff, but maybe it's philosophical. Maybe it's just like, hey, if you're doing that, then just do that. Um,
I mean, it's the way that they went about the whole relocation thing. It's the ownership. I it says a lot about how the organization is
yeah,
run.
yeah,
And so I can't imagine that they're getting the kind of support through the minors. We've heard for years that the A's are a bit of a trash organization when it comes to how they handle their minor league development staff. And it's a shame because back in the early 2000s, like up through the mid 2010s, they were really good at bringing
yeah,
guys up that would perform at the major league level. And that's gone away a lot. And so I can't help but think that the way that they treated the fans, the way they treated the city of Oakland with complete disregard, stripping the roster, stripping the coaching staff, I think that that's affected the performance of the players. Because you got some good players there, but you need
yeah,
to support them with good coaching staff,
yeah.
good support, good intelligence, the analytics and all that stuff. These guys know how to read the numbers now. They understand it. But if you're not supporting them with all that, they're not going to excel.
Absolutely. And it's funny. I was watching the Oakland game the other day, and their patch is Vegas. Visit Vegas.
Yeah. They got Vegas on one side, and they have the Tower Bridge from Sacramento on the other sleeve, but nothing anywhere says Sacramento. You go
Uh,
into their team store and nothing says Sacramento. And how would you feel? And it's like, okay, you're only here. You're not even a
right.
guest in our town. You're just here to like use our city for a couple of years until your condo, your penthouse is done being built down there in Vegas.
Absolutely. So I mean, so by the end of the day, I was still pretty mad because I'm a minor league guy. I love my minor league guys, but at the end of the day, I'm like, hey, that's pretty good. In the beginning, I was like, then I was like, eh, that. So, but at the end of the day, on trade deadline, I was on board. Still soaring a little bit, but like, let's go with the guys that we got, with the holes in the lineup. Now the lineup is absolutely money all the way through. Even when you're talking about Fermin, even Diaz. Um, 1 through 9 is pretty damn solid. And to have Lariano and Hearn hit lower in the, that just pushes Bogarts down to the 5 and 6 spot sometimes. Crone is hitting down that far. And you got a serious lineup that has high potential to make the playoffs.
Right. So we've worked our way through these trades like trade by trade by trade, which is how we kind of digested the day as it went by. But I think the right way to look at this is how you had our agenda here laid out, which I think is what Sammy Levitt, how he kind of summarized it at the end of the day, where here's all the guys that came in and here's all the guys that left. And you look at the names of the guys that came in and where they fit on the team. And then you look at all the guys that left. And yeah, there's a couple of guys on there. There's a handful of guys that you look at and go, I really like that dude.
Right.
But you look at what they added versus what was subtracted. And I think it's hard to be bitter about how this whole thing went down.
No, absolutely. And like once again, there are some arms that I'm gonna pay close attention to as the years go by. And you might be right about Net. He still has control issues, but as a undrafted free agent for Preller to pick him up, and get the value out of a Figueroa that he's gotten, and have players like, Emmanuel Canales, my guy Romeo Sanabria still in the system.
Mm-hmm.
That once again, first baseman, you're gonna have to find power to make it to the big leagues. Guys that we can still root for, and there are a few more arms down there and a couple bats. That we're not looking for a number one. We don't care about the number one farm system. That means there's just no one moving up into the major leagues. We want guys that are going to be in the system that can make it to the majors. And some of those kids that came up to the Storm, are this year's draft picks, and they're going to show themselves.
Right. Yeah. So I had a
So
point. I
we'll see
forgot what it
well,
was.
so let's finish up, and then we can spend another half an hour to an hour talking about the next 2 weeks. So the
Uh-huh.
next 2 weeks, I don't want to. It's not a make or break. I don't want to say it's a make or break, but what could happen is we could be in first place, or we can be not in first place.
Right. They could be in first. They could be 10 games back by
yeah.
by by 2 weeks from now.
The
Playing the
Giants.
Dodgers 2 straight series. My gosh, this
And
is
the
a
Giants, they've been winning. They've found themselves. It's funny. I was watching the Royals game, and who was batting left-handed over there? It's Yastrzemski.
uh-huh. Yeah, yeah. It's so weird. Like I thought he was going to be a Giant for life. So there were a few casualties from all of that. So Martin Maldonado was released. Tyler Wade and Trenton Brooks both got designated for assignment and outrighted to El Paso. Trenton Brooks was the DH for a solid couple of weeks. Like you think about that, like no knock on Trenton Brooks, but he's not a major league designated hitter. And that right there kind of highlights to me that this guy was hitting in the middle of the Padres order of a team that's supposed to be contending.
Right,
Like,
right.
so I think that says something right there that Martin Maldonado and Trenton Brooks are no longer around. Tyler Wade, I was surprised to see that he was the one that wound up getting that got the last cut. I figured it was either him or Bryce Johnson, but they knew that he would clear waivers and they knew that he would accept an assignment
Yeah.
to El Paso because he loves being here. And it's just maybe it could be a matter of time till he gets another opportunity. But so it's kind of the sad side of it. But at the same time, I'm not sad to see those names not on the big league roster because there isn't room for them. That the guys that took their place are legit playoff team contributors.
Absolutely. And who we haven't talked about is another casualty of all this is Gavin Sheets. Um, you know, we have 2 more years of team control with him.
Sounds about right.
Like he's, with O'Hearn being a rental, and I'm sure they went to Sheets and went like, hey, look, here's what we're doing. Here's what we're thinking. Here's our plan for you. 2 years?
2 years, yeah.
Yeah. Like, hey, we need you coming off the bench. We need you to do a spot start. He's starting tonight, Monday night. Um, we have you in our plans, but we can't stop from, picking up these guys. And I think most ball players are just going to go like, yeah, those guys are good. I'll whatever you need, coach. Kind of when O'Hearn and Laureano came in, like whatever you guys need. Like, and I think that's how if you're not an absolute superstar, most ball players are like going to new organizations, just coming into the clubhouse, whatever you need.
Mhm.
I think even now, Jackson Merrill's like, he came into spring training this year. He'll come into spring training next year. Like he has a contract, but he still needs to make the team. Like
Right.
whatever you need me to do. Um, he's going to be a contributor to this team, and watch it happen. I'm going to call it now. In the playoffs, some odd start, Sheets is going to hit a tank. He's going to get a knock that is going to be like, and he came off the bench.
Holy sheets.
Holy Sheets. And the shirt is going to be in capitals all over. To have someone like that, because, as a fan, you go like, oh, we can't chant Holy Sheets. Or, this guy that's contributed for a lot.
Mhm.
Now he's kind of in the back seat. As
He
a
is.
fan, you go like, oh, that's kind of like breaking up with kind of like keeping something on the side that was your first piece, but whatever. Um, I don't know where I was going with that.
That's a way of looking at it, though. No, he was the starting left fielder. He was out there every day, and he turned himself into a pretty good left fielder. At
Right.
first, he was a mess out there, and he worked his butt off to get better, and he was looking passable. But you see Laureano show up, and already the couple of things he's done already, like there's balls that there's no way Sheets would have
Yeah.
gotten to it. There's been balls hitting the corner that he's cut off and gotten the throw in like that saved a base. Would have rattled around and Sheets would have taken another base to get it in.
Yeah, the
And
throw to
then
the plate. Wasn't there a throw? Was that third?
yeah,
That
the relay
ball
throw.
was hitting the gap, right? Hit
Yeah,
and Lynn's like, he throw that? I'm like, no, he hit his cutoff man.
yes. But so then but you've got Sheets and you've got O'Hearn. They're both lefties. They both play first base, outfield, DH, kind of similar profiles. So they're kind of duplicitous between the two of them. But I
Right.
think we're going to see. I mean, they're pretty good at finding opportunities for guys to play. There will
Yeah.
be times when Laureano needs a day off. Today, he's a bad matchup with Brandon Webb, so it is a good time to give him a start off. We'll probably see him pinch hit later in the game. But now you got Sheets back out there playing. You keep him happy. You have him playing once a week, and but he's already rebuilt so much value. If you're the player and you're looking like, okay, my career was on the skids, and he was a minor league free agent that they
Right.
signed. And
Right.
now he is a major leaguer. Every other team in the league looks at him and goes, okay, that guy can hit. He's got power. We can trust him to play a little bit of left field. If he was a free agent today, he'd be picked up on a major league contract.
Oh, absolutely. So we'll see what the next 2 weeks bring. It's I don't want to say it's well, I hate that it's a good test. Um, it's it's a chance for the Padres to really kind of break away from the Giants, who are a little bit of the last week. They've been playing really well. And it's also a good chance for them to get a good dig in the Dodgers, who are definitely, and even the Dodger fans I talk to, they're like, they're God, what's the word I'm looking for? They're not as dangerous as we think. Are they good as they
Right.
are? Yes, they are that good. And they get some health coming back. But it's a good chance to watch some really good baseball, some playoff baseball, early in the season, or at least midway through the season, and see how we come out at the end.
Well, with all the noise that the Dodgers made in the offseason, and then all the noise that the Dodger fans make, you would think that they should be 30 games up in the National League West right now. And with that roster and that payroll and all of the hype and all the hype that Major League Baseball puts behind everything that Shohei Ohtani sneezed, put it on every social media.
The
Like
dog,
they
what's
should be
God?
running away with this league, but I think right now they're 3 games up.
Yeah,
And so the Padres have a chance. They have a chance to catch him. They have a chance to at least show him like we're not going anywhere. So if the Padres are 500 through these next 2 weeks, that's a success. But if they're more than 500, that there's a good chance that they've made up ground on the team that's supposed to be running away with this division. And I can't be happier to be in this spot right now.
absolutely. So we're gonna see how it goes. We'll talk to you in a couple of weeks. I am we are under contract with the land, so things on my end for the project that I'm working on is absolutely accelerating. Um, so I'm gonna stop podcasting here, and I got to do a bunch of stuff to be put out tomorrow. But until then, you guys, let's see how these next
Oh,
2 weeks go.
before we sign off,
Go ahead.
congratulations to Jen Powell for
Oh
being the
yeah,
first female to umpire a regular season major league game. This is
way
outstanding.
way overdue. Way overdue. And we've been watching minor league umpires, female minor league umpires, for years now in the system. So to have her break that barrier is absolutely huge. And all the other noise is just noise. It's just what happens when something new, when our culture, when our culture evolves. Um, I love being woke. That means I am open. That means I am fucking flexible. That means I'm willing to grow and learn and be and have empathy. And I don't need to be a dick to be a tough guy. And I don't need to be anything other than we're all on the same planet. We're all going together. Here, have a little bit of have a little bit of this. And if it opens the door to more umpires, I'm for it. And to take this another step, the throwing sex toys onto a freaking MWNBA, like if you applaud that, if you think that's funny, if you find that anywhere but absolutely appalling, dude, just stop listening to the podcast because it's idiotic. Um, it's I just there's no place in that in our society, and I don't. There's no argument for it. Um, Totally separate thing. That's the way I see it. That's the way it should be. And until then, you can unfollow me on Twitter at SD Donavan.
I'm at Zippy_TMS.
Let's
Oh,
go
we'll see you in a
Padres.
couple weeks here. Let's go Padres. Hopefully, in a couple weeks, we got a whole bunch of dubs and we got a blue team in the rearview mirror.
Whoop it up, dub.